Hey friends, Greg with the Pennywise guys. I want to show you how to install a solar system with one person doing most of the work. I did this system by myself, except for the panel installation. Let me show you. Let's get started. Alright, I'm going to explain to you how I do this by myself. I can do the racking, the inverters, all the cabling, wiring, everything by myself. And I'll need an extra set of hands to lay down the panels. But what I do is I bring up the rails, pre-cut them, bring them up, lay them out on the roof. This rail was non-cut, it was a full rail. Yeah, it's exactly the amount that I need. Lay it out. Use a 1/2-inch PVC pipe to cut the length of the panel and cut one to the width of the panel. I use the length of the panel to lay out the panels this way. Okay, get as far up as I can. I went to the ridge there and the ridge over here. Okay, so lay it out evenly, space out in between. How much overlap? About 1 foot, 16 inches on the top, on the bottom. Lay it out. So when you get the rails laid out, go ahead and put the feet pedestals. I use every 6 feet, plus or minus an inch or so. And so I have the rail laying above here. So I'll put the rail up here and then lay the feet out. Measure it out to where I think I need them. Okay. And do the same on the bottom. So I laid out the 3 feet. Okay. And then go ahead and attach the feet and then bolt the rails on. Okay. You can see another video I have on how to mount these deck mount pedestals. They work wonderful. You don't have to find the rafters. They're very quick. I did this whole job of laying all these rails out and the inverters. Let me show you over here. Here's the second array over here. So we have panels going across the top and a panel down here. Okay, and then I got 2 panels over there. Okay, and let me show you the third array. And that one's over here. Okay, so I have the 2 long rails down there. I have splices and then these panels across here. Let me mention to you, what I do is I cut everything down on the ground and I pre-splice it with the, I use the Everest rails and the connectors. So I have it all pre-cut where there's rails are longer than 1/66, which is standard length, and I add additional. An airplane going across there, little noise. And then I bring it up and lay it on the roof. And if you notice, I bring up chalk. So get some sidewalk chalk. You can mark out your roof. There's a mark over there, the end of that rail. And then start laying out from the top. Get as high as you want, wherever you want to place it. Make sure you understand that the panel is going to stick above the rail about 16 inches, so make sure it's where you want it when the panel's up there. So when it goes across, it's not covering that vent. Okay, and then go ahead and lay that out. I lay it all out first. Make sure all the rails are where I want them. Okay, I think I got 55 inches between the rails where the panels go, about 16 inches on either side. Here is where you've got about roughly 16 inches on the bottom and on the top, and again about 55 inches spread there. That's for these panels. Your panels may be different. Okay, so once I got them all laid out, then I just lay out the feet at 6 feet approximately. And I don't want to get the pedestal on top of a tab like this. I try for the valley of the tab or on the top, but not split. Okay, and then I put lots of sealant on the bottom of those mounts. You'll see the other video on how to mount these. You don't have to find the rafters, put in the 4 screws. If you have a screw that hits a nail that doesn't want to go through, drill that nail out and then put the screw in, okay? And it worked out really well. They're great mounts, saved me a lot of time. On my last job, I think we saved about 25-30 hours of man hours of time using these mounts over the conventional mounts where you have to find the rafters. So these deck mounts are quick bolt deck mounts. I'll put a link at the bottom. Wonderful product, save you a lot of time, and one guy can do it. Okay, and then let me show you on these rails here. I got a really big dip right there in the middle roof, up to 2-inch dip. So once you get the rails, figure out where you want them, put the feet on the roof, and then T-bolt the rails to the pedestals. Okay, and then you can do your vertical adjustments. If you notice, I'm all the way down on this one here. Okay, as far as it'll go, and as high as it'll go in the middle where it dips down really bad, and then across the top there. So you eyeball it from the end and see how straight it looks. This job is going to require those door shims. I talked about the before on other jobs. I use the composite door shims. Get those. I'll show you a link below on those. You get them at Lowe's, Home Depot, parts stores. The composite, the plastic door shims. They're a 1/4 inch tapered down to about 1/16 inch. They're great to go ahead and do a vertical height adjustments when you start putting the panels down and you don't have any more adjustment. You can use up to double, which is a 1/2 inch more height. Double the door shim, tape it to the rail, put the panel down, bolt it, and it stays put. On the ends, you can only go 1 shim. Okay, so a 1/4 inch adjustment on the ends, but everything in between up to a 1/2 inch adjustment. Okay. All right, so let me talk about the inverters. These are the Chilicon inverters. I highly recommend them. They're the best on the market. They do not clip the top end of the power. It has better production. Okay, so what I do is I take this is a valuable tool right here. These 2 pieces of pipe. Okay, this one here is cut to the width of the panel. That one is cut to the length. So I use that one there to help me get the alignment. I lay it down on here and I just mark it out using that as the panel length. That's if you go portrait. If you go landscape, then you'll use a shorter one to do your measurements if you're going to go landscape instead of portrait. So these 2 pieces of pipe are really very handy. And what I do is, if you'll see that Sharpie mark there, okay, and that double Sharpie mark there, that is done with this. So what you do is 1/2 inch, sorry about the, here we go, it drops right in. Okay, so you just move it along, mark it, move it along. Okay, there it goes. Okay, use that to mark out your rails where your panels are going to go. That is needed. I might by the airport, so lots of planes here. Okay, let me grab my stick here. You use these marks to lay out your inverters. These are double, what they 2 panels per 1 inverter. These are CP720s. Takes 2 panels, 1 inverter. Okay, so it has 2 sets of the wire connectors. I can pull them up here. There you go. Sorry about that. 2 sets of DC connectors, 1 for each panel. Okay, you want those right in the middle of where the panel is going to lay out, so the inverter can go on either side of that, and these need to be right in the middle of where that panel is going to go, so you'll be able to reach the DC cables on both sides. Okay, so you do that on all those, lay them out, okay, like that. And then what I do is, just before I do anything else, is I lay the trunk cables out. Okay, this is the start of it. This one here has this panel and this panel up here share the same inverter. Okay, So I didn't start it here, I started it down here to be able to get the DC cables to reach. I'm gonna have to extend the cables, the DC cables on this one. The connectors, you can find those on Amazon or your solar supplier. Get the connectors so you can extend the DC wires, because this one's not going to be able to reach all the way to that one. It'll reach to about here, and you'll have to extend it about 1.5 feet just on this one panel. Okay, everything else should reach. Okay, so this is where I'm starting. So I lay this cable, see the connector here, and it continues. This guy, it's nice to have this PVC pipe as a pointer so I don't have to bend down. This one plugs into right there. Okay, this will stay open. I silicone that instead of buying the plug. I just silicone that, seal it up. It'll be strapped to this rail. Won't get wet, but I silicone it anyway. So that first inverter gets plugged into there. And this is the longer. Let me explain to you. Chilicon has 3 sizes of cables. A short one for extensions, a middle-sized one for small panels that are with single inverters. When you have the double inverters, they have the longer one. It's about 7.5 feet long. It works well for the doubles. Okay, so this one gets strapped over here. I'll stretch it along this rail. Then this end here of that cable plugs into the end of that next cable. The cable coming off, this one here, coming off of the inverter, plugs in right there. Okay, so this one plugs in here, and this other cable plugs from the inverter, plugs in right there. If this straps to here, you strap it along and continue the process where the cable here will plug into the end. I don't see if you can see it. Again, plugs into the end of the next cable. That there from the inverter plugs in. It's all going to be strapped along here, and you just continue down the line. Okay, now this one here is going to go from here down to here. So this one gets plugged in to, this is the extension. This is that short 3-foot extension, okay, that you can get. There's 3 different sizes of cables. Make sure you order the right ones. Okay, this gets plugged into the end of that. This gets plugged into the side of that. That gets strapped up on this rail. This one stretches across over to here. And now you have this going into here, this going into here. And now this one is the end of the run. At the other side was the beginning of the run. This one is the end of the run. This will get cut off right here, stripped back. Those bare wires will go into a J box right here, and that's where you wire your DC wires coming off your inverters to the J box, which then I go to the SolaDeck. And I'll show you that in a little bit when I get that done. Okay, other than that, we're going to go ahead and get all these strapped together now, and we'll show you the end result. I'm going to paint. I used the roofing sealant. Sometimes it's black, sometimes it's white. This happened to be white. So make sure it's sealed up really good, and I come back with gray paint, whatever matches the roof, and I paint that just so you can't see it from down below. It's underneath the panels, but you still kind of see the white. So I'll paint all that gray, and that'll blend that in really nicely, okay? I did all this work that you saw up here in 8 hours just by myself, from start to finish. Cutting, putting the rails together, bringing everything up, laying it all out, bolting the feet down, the pedestals, putting the rails on, adjustment of the rails, and all the inverters, laying out cables, all in 8 hours. Okay, so you can do it. There's no way I can put these panels down by myself. It takes 2 guys to do that. So I'll bring my partner in, have him help me do that, and then we'll get it finished up wiring to the main panel, and we've got a done system. Okay, so you can do this by yourself if you need to. It's not that difficult. Just lay it all out, mark everything out, make sure you double check all your measurements, make sure it's going to work the way you want it, and then put the feet out. Since the rail is laying across the roof, just go ahead and lay your feet out on the roof where you want it to go. Some guys strike lines, okay, from end to end to be able to get those feet straight. But if you look, this is a new roof. and the guy did a good job of getting it all pretty straight. So I just follow the tabs, and you can be plus or minus up to a ½ inch. These rails, these Everest rails, really flex a lot. I wouldn't go more than 1/4, but you can probably push up to ½ inch off a little bit. But if you follow the tabs, and this pedestal fits about on the tab, only about maybe 3/8 of an inch left over. So you pretty much lay them across the tab, seal it up real good, bolt it in, and it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the inverters all buttoned up, wiring all done, and I'll show you the end results before we put up panels. Another note here is when you're doing these splices, make sure you lay your feet out to where it's not over one of these splices, because you're not going to be able to bolt it in. So it's going to have to be on either side of the splice. Very important that you take off the decals that have the serial number on them. I'm going to pull those off, and we're going to stick it on a page, laying it out like we have. I have the west, south, east, and north. I have 3 arrays, the west array, the south array, and the east array, and I'm going to lay out the inverters on the page according to their location. So when you go to build the arrays on the gateway, so you can actually see your solar system, you'll know which panels and which inverters are how they're performing. Okay, but very, very important to pull those stickers off. Do not forget, because once they're covered up by panels, it's hard to retrieve them. Got the racking all done. We're going to go ahead and put up the panels starting today. I have a total of 15 hours of roof time by myself to get all this prepared. I went ahead and painted the caulking around the feet, and check out my video on how to mount those the quick bolt deck mount. They save a lot of time. I think I'd probably add another 12 hours just if I had to use a conventional mounts where you had to find the rafters. Okay, so that's the really time saver, money saver. Very easily done by yourself. You can do this. You'll need an extra set of hands to put the panels up, but for 15 hours worth of work, you got it all done. So the liquid tight is running across here, and that ties into each of the boxes, a ½ inch liquid tight, the 2x4 boxes. Okay, and this is the east array all ready to go, and I've got grounding number 8 copper grounding lugs, and those go in from rail to rail. So we're tying the rails together, and then we're going to take that over to the SolaDeck, which I'll show you. So that goes from there. Excuse all the mess here. And this is the SolaDeck. And so the bare copper wires go in there and land on the grounding lug right down in that corner. And this is where we do all the wire connection with wire nuts. The Romex pulled through the attic. The number 10 wire coming through the liquid tight. And that's a nice looking profile, low profile unit that I really like those. Okay, and I'll get straps to strap the liquid tight to the roof and get that all secured. And we're ready to go. So anyway, I'd encourage you to think about doing this yourself. One man, 15 hours to do all this work to get ready to put up panels. All right, we got the system running. Everything's completed. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a few tips here on laying down the panels. Okay, here's the east array. We have 8 panels total on this side. So 22 panels total. Each panel is 450 watts. And then we've got the liquid tight all secured down to the roof and painted. You got to paint it or else liquid tight will deteriorate. I use either enamel or latex paint. Either one, match the roof color and go ahead and paint it. Keeps the liquid tight lasting a long time and it looks better, matches the roof. And got it all labeled. Okay, let me show you the SolaDeck. Here's the other liquid tight running down from underneath the panel, so it's stretched along the rail, strapped to the rails, protected by the elements. So I just painted from that edge down to the SolaDeck. And then there's the SolaDeck, and we got the other line coming from the west array. And let me take the lid off here and show you how it's all connected up. I use wire nuts. If you know how to do wire nuts, they work fine. If you don't, practice, but always pull on the wires after you connect it to make sure they're all connected well together. So the large wire nuts tied in all the whites together and all the grounds together, and each individual circuit, number 8 Romex to number 8 stranded wire, is using the red wire nuts. Okay, and then of course all the grounds from the rails come up through these two. They're attached here, and then this one is from the group of wire nuts that tied all the grounds together, and one copper going into the grounding lug. Okay, so that's that, and then put the lid on and you'll put the screws in, which are inside, but I need to have the inspector be able to look at it, so I'm not going to put the screws in yet. Okay, that's that. Let me show you some information here. When you're laying down these panels, it's going to take 2 of you, okay? And so you start at the end, or either end, and you put on a clamp that the new design, they used to stick out on the rail and they'd clamp over on top, like the mid clamps. These end clamps now are a hidden clamp, and they're underneath there grabbing the bottom lip of the panel. So you bring it over against the bottom of that panel, tighten that bolt down, and it's tight. And then you trim them off and put the caps on. I'll show you that in a minute. The mid clamps tie both panels together. There's one there, and there's one on the second rail. So when you lay down your panels, if you start on the one end, you lay it down and get the wiring done. So I hold it up for a 45-degree angle. My partner then wires it all together, gets all the wires stretched nice and tight so they're not sagging. And then when we lay it down, we make sure we pull them tight, and then we go ahead and put the clamps on the end. And then what we do, I'll show you on this one real quick, we put, before this panel's laid down, let's say we're going to put this panel down next, and we already put that one down, we leave those mid clamps loose and up enough to where this panel will, at a 45, slide in underneath it. Hold it there while you get the DC wires all put together, strapped up with the zip ties, lay it down, and then square it off at the top and tighten that bolt down, number 10 millimeter, and tighten that one down there. That's actually 13 millimeter, sorry. Tighten that 13 millimeter bolt down there, and then you can go ahead and, after it's all done, put the end clamps. I have them on the rails to begin with, slid them back, put the panel down, reach underneath there and slide it forward and tighten the bolt down. All right, I asked you to, I gave you a suggestion, go ahead and leave your rails at least 3 inches, if not more, extra length. So you try to get the rails squared off as best you can, but you're not going to be perfect. That's why you leave that extra length. And so when you're all done, come back. I used to leave about a 1/2, 3/4 inch, mark it, take a hacksaw and cut it. This one is the first one I wanted to cut it flush. See how that worked. It was a little bit more work. And let me show you what you have to do in order to do that. Get yourself a piece of roof trim like this. You see how it's all scarred up? You don't want that to happen to the panels. So you put the roof trim on there like that, and then take a hacksaw doesn't work because it's so close it gets bound in there. A Sawzall with the 8-inch blade will work and cut that rail off. A lot more work. It looks a little nicer, but I think for your first time I'd recommend leaving about 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, using a regular hacksaw. You don't have to worry about scarring the panel, and then put those end caps on there. All right, let me go ahead and show you the panel work here. First of all, we had the number 10-3 Romex that's combined the 3 arrays together at the SolaDeck on the roof there I showed you. That Romex runs through the attic into this J box, a 4x4 J box. And I tied that number 10 Romex to number 10 stranded wire to run down to the sub panel. Each circuit's going to be 40 amps. So what I did is I went ahead and tied all the whites together with a big blue wire nut, and brought the individual 3 strands of number 10 down to the bus bar in that sub panel. The grounds, I tied them all together and tied them to a number 8 wire that brought it down and lugged it to the chair lug that I mounted inside the sub panel. Okay, so basically I have four breakers. 3 of them are 20 amp for each of the arrays, and then that 60 amp breaker is the wire that goes to the disconnect. It's number 4 wire, so it's carrying that 40 amps. I used the 1-inch Liquid-Tight here for that transition because there was an obstruction here in that box. Alright, here's a better view of it here. The number 4 wire, I've got the L1 and L2 going in, and then what's coming out goes into the panel. Okay, the neutral runs straight through, and the ground is attached to that ground lug there, the ground bus. Okay, pretty straightforward. The neutral doesn't have to tie in there, just run it straight through. The panel, you can't see it because I don't have it opened, but you'll see my line side tap video, and go ahead and watch that to find out how to do the line side tap on this 100 amp panel. Very good way to do it. You just got to get the right panel. Check out that video. So none of these wires land on breakers. We're doing a line side tap right about there. Okay, and of course the neutral comes to there's a neutral lug and there's a ground lug that I added. Okay, so that's all to code. And so check out the line side tap video for that, and you're gonna know how to do that. If you're not an electrician, get someone that knows what they're doing. But basically straightforward wiring on the sub panel, the disconnect, which you really need because there's no way to disconnect the power to the solar without the disconnect. Okay, so right now I'm going to flip it on. Now the power is now going to the microinverters, and they're going to produce power. Okay, so let me close this panel here and let me talk to you about the grounding. This panel here, the old one, the old Zinsko panel, did not have a grounding rod. It's grounded to the plumbing system, so they make us put in 2 grounding rods. There's the one I added, and I have another line running around over to that one right there by that rock. And they actually, when you put a solar system in, even if there's a grounding rod, you have to put a second one in 6 feet away, at least here in California. I don't know about your area if you require that, but check your local codes for that. But it's a good idea to have a double ground rod system. So that one goes in, it comes over, ties into this one, and then the armored shielded cable that has the number 8 bare copper wire, and it runs into the bottom of the panel, in and attached to the ground lug. Okay, the reason I went straight in like this is to get a straight shot, but also to leave room for down here for a future expansion. If I did this right here, I would really block a lot of access to more circuits to be added later. So I did the Liquid-Tight there and PVC there. Okay, I hope that helps. Get some help if you need it. You have a blessed day. I sure hope you enjoyed this video and it was a help to you. Please like, subscribe, and share. Also hit that notification bell to be notified of weekly videos. I pray that you are blessed and that you know Him who is the author of life.